three kinds of approach to the problem of ethics. And the first one is the standpoint of religion, theistic traditions. The second is so-called scientific approach. And the third one is Buddhist approach. First is the theistic traditions. Judaism and Christianity teach that the world was created by a loving, all-powerful God to provide a home for us. We, in turn, were created in His image to be His children. Thus, the world is not devoid of meaning and purpose. It is instead the arena in which God's plans and purposes are realized. What could be more natural than to think that morality is a part of a religious view of the world, whereas the atheistic world has no place for values. In the major theistic traditions, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, God is conceived as a lawgiver who has laid down rules that we are to obey. He does not compel us to obey them, but we were created as free agents, so we may choose to accept or to reject His commandments. But if we are to live as we should, we must follow God's law. This conception has been elaborated by some theologians into a theory about the nature of right and wrong, known as the divine command theory. Essentially, this theory says that morally right is a matter of being commanded by God, and morally wrong is a matter of being forbidden by God. That is the theistic approach. And then we have Bertrand Russell's scientific approach. This was written in 1902, more than 100 years ago, in his book, A Free Man Worship. That man is the product of causes which had no prevision of the end they were achieving, that his origin, his growth, his hopes and fears, his loves and his beliefs are but the outcome of accidental collocations of atoms, that no fire, no heroism, no intensity of thought and feeling can preserve an individual life beyond the grave, that all the labors of all the ages, all the devotion, all the inspiration, all the noonday brightness of human genius are destined to extinction in the vast death of the solar system, and that the whole temple of man's achievement must inevitably be buried beneath the debris of a universe in ruins. All these things, if not quite beyond dispute, are yet so nearly certain that no philosophy which rejects them can hope to stand. Only within the scaffolding of this truth, only on the firm foundation of the unyielding despair, can the soul habitation henceforth be safely built. Very strong. So, according to him, coincidence and annihilation of man after his appearance. Is the opposite with the religious view, because in the religious view, the soul is immortal. immortal, permanent. So one is the view of permanence, immortality, and the other is the view of annihilation, the opposite views. And one is the view of there's a purpose, a plan, a project. And the other view is that just pure coincidence, the collocation of atoms. We are the product of coincidence. So it's opposite views. And there is another scientific view that is more recent. The universe is some 15 billion years old. That is the time elapsed since the Big Bang. And the Earth itself was formed about 4.6 billion years ago. The evolution of life on the planet was a slow process, guided largely by natural selection. The evolution of life, the first humans appeared quite recently. The extinction of great dinosaurs 65 million years ago left ecological room for the evolution of the few little mammals that were about. And after 63 or 64 million more years, one line of that evolution finally produced us. In geological time, we, man, arrived only yesterday. But no sooner did our ancestors arrive than they began to think of themselves as the most important things in all creation. Some of them even imagined that the whole universe had been made for their benefit. Thus, when they began to develop theories of right and wrong, they held that the protection of their own interests had a kind of ultimate and objective value. The rest of creation, the reason, was intended for their use. We know now better. We now know better. We now know that it exists by evolutionary accident, as one species among many on a small and insignificant world in one little corner of the cosmos. The details of this picture are revised each year as more is discovered, but the main outline seems well established. So the idea of coincidence still remains in the so-called scientific view. I think there are a few scientists who do not agree with that. Coincidence. And finally, we have the Buddhist approach in just a few lines. And this is what these few lines we use during the last winter retreat. Both subject and object of perception manifest from consciousness according to the principle of interbeing. Man is present in all things, and all things are present in man. On the phenomenal level, there seems to be birth, death, being and non-being, but ontologically, these notions cannot be applied to reality. The dynamic consciousness is called karma energy. Everything evolves according to the principle of interdependence, but there is free will, and the possibility transforms. There is probability. The one affects the all, and the all affects the one. Interbeing also means impermanence, non-self, emptiness, karma, and countless world systems. Right view allows right action, leading to the reduction of suffering and the increase of happiness. Happiness and suffering into are. The ultimate reality transcends notions of good and evil. right and wrong.
The Buddha sits in such a way that he feels light, relaxed, happy, free. Breathing in, I invite the Buddha to breathe with my lungs. Breathing out, I invite the Buddha to sit with my back. The quality of breathing in the Buddha breath is very high, excellent. I know that the quality of his sitting is excellent. So I enjoy breathing, I enjoy sitting. I'm aware that my Father is fully present in every cell of my body. So I would like to invite my Father to breathe in with me, breathe out with me. I would like to invite my Father in me to sit with my back. This is my back, but it is also his. Father and son, father and daughter breathing together. Father and son, father and daughter breathing together. Breathing in, I feel so light. Breathing out, I feel so free. Daddy, do you feel as light as I do? Do you feel as free as I do? He's fully present in every cell of my body. So I would like to invite her to breathe with me, to breathe with my lungs, and to sit with my back. These are my lungs, but they are also hers. This is my back, but that is also hers. Mother and son breathing in together. Mother and daughter breathing in together. Mother and son breathing out together. Mother and daughter breathing out together. Breathing in, I feel so light. Mother, do you feel as light as I do? Breathing out, I feel so free. Mother, do you feel as free as I do? Good morning, dear Sangha. Today is June the 9th in the year 2009, and we are in the New Hamlet, Loving Kindness Temple, during our 21-day retreat. Thank you for having observed the Nokha Day with joy. It's wonderful to see that many hundreds of cars were grounded on the parking lot for 24 hours or more. In Plum Village, we have a Nokha Day every week and all year round. And also in our monastery in California, New York, and so on. There are thousands of friends, tens of thousands of friends who also observe a Nokha Day a week. So, and we feel very joyful that we can do so. We are not compelled to do so. We are not forced to do so, but we feel the joy because practicing a Nokha Day, it comes from our insight, for our happiness. So we practice our Nokha Day with a lot of happiness. And this is a kind of offering we made to the earth, we made to the Buddha and the Sangha by observing a Nokha Day. You know that Deer Park Monastery is now totally on solar energy. We don't use electricity anymore. And all year round we use solar energy. And we have cars running on vegetable oil. They smell like French fries. Dear friends, this must be the first lotus of the season. And of course, when you look at it, you can see the mud and everything in it, the sunshine, the rain, and everything. And your consciousness is in it. Anyway, it is the object of your consciousness. Usually, the first lotus flower blooms only on the 19th and the 20th of June. But this year, we have the fortune to have the first lotus flower coming so soon. Of course, the lotus does not smell the mud, but the mud is in the lotus. So it is possible for us to handle suffering in such a way that suffering can be transformed into understanding, compassion, as beautiful as a lotus flower. And we know that mud and the lotus interact. We know that suffering and happiness interact. When we study and practice the 5 mindfulness trainings, we are aware that the 5 trainings are the fruit of our meditation. It's born from our mindfulness and concentration. They represent our insight. It's like when you observe a no-car day and nobody imposed the idea on us. Nobody forced us to do so because we have that insight that is something very nice to do to the earth and to offer to humanity. So we do that with joy. The same thing must be true with the 5 mindfulness trainings. We practice them with a lot of joy. And we know that they have come not from someone else in the sky, but it has come from our own practice of mindfulness concentration. So let us present the 5 trainings in such a way that people recognize them as the fruit of our practice. That is our insight. We know that the killing that has been going on in many places is due to fanaticism, narrowness, wrong thinking. And if you just say that killing is not good, that does not help very much. But if we know how to help the person who is about to kill to get the insight of interbeing, to remove fanaticism, narrowness, and then naturally that person will stop thinking, stop killing. And that is why we as a Sangha, we have to try to present the teaching, the practice of the Buddha in such a way that people will be glad to recognize that is the best of insight. In the version that we have been using in the last 30 years, aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I am committed to cultivating compassion and learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I am determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to support any act of killing in the world, in my thinking and in my way of life. We would like to introduce the insight of interbeing into this
in order to help people learn, practice, and realize by themselves that the first mindfulness trainings come from themselves. And it is a joy to be able to practice it. So we can propose something like this. I undertake to practice looking deeply in order to touch the nature of interbeing in all things, to transcend discrimination, attachment to views, intolerance, dogmatism, which are at the foundation of fear, exclusion, anger, craving, and despair that lead to the act of violence and the destruction of life. And that is something we have to practice, to learn, to meditate upon. We have to live our daily life in such a way, to live deeply in mindfulness so that we can see the nature of interbeing in everything. That happiness and suffering are not individual matters. That when you do harm to the environment, you do harm to yourself. When you do harm to the other person, you do harm to yourself. And we know that if the noble path proposes right view, because right view will exclude, will transform intolerance, dogmatism, attachment to views, discrimination. So it is the insight that liberates us from these kind of things. Because discrimination, attachment to views, intolerance, dogmatism, they are the foundation for exclusion, fear, anger, craving, and despair. And this leads to the killing, to the destruction of life. Propose right view. We know that it is the removal of all kind of views. By the way, the word Nirvana, it means extinction. And first of all, that is the extinction of views. Whether that is a view concerning birth and death, sameness or otherness, being and non-being, and so on. During the Vietnam War, we were aware that there was a lot of fear and anger and fanaticism, because the ideologies that are behind the war is communism and anti-communism. And the communists wanted to destroy the anti-communist, and the anti-communists wanted to destroy communism. So he imported ideologies from the outside. That is a misfortune. Why do we have to import ideologies from the outside? We have our spiritual tradition. Why we have to import these doctrines and ideologies and adapt them and become enemies? Why brothers have to kill brothers? And then the weapons, they are imported also from the communist bloc and from the anti-communist blocs. So not only we imported ideologies, but we imported also weapons. And caught in that situation, how could the Buddhists react? Because the Vietnam War is an international war, supported by two blocs, one communist bloc and one anti-communist bloc. There's a fear, anger. The anti-communist bloc were very afraid that if they lose Vietnam, and then other countries in the area will fall down also. So America was investing a lot of human lives and
money and weapons into the Vietnam War. And America has lost so many young men over there and have suffered very much as well as the Vietnamese. So we can see very clearly that the roots of war is the narrowness of views, the ideologies. You are attached to one view. You think that your view is the best kind of view, and you have to die for your view. And there are those of us in Vietnam who try to speak out, to tell the world that we did not want the war. We are forced to take up the guns to kill each other, but we did not want that. We did not want that. We want reconciliation. And those of us who work for reconciliation and peace were not allowed, because both sides have censorship, and the voice of the people who want peace could not be heard. And everyone in the world thought that in Vietnam, we wanted to fight to the end. But that is not true. The majority of us did not want the war. And that is why there were those of us who burned ourselves alive in order to draw the attention of the world, to say only one thing: we don't want this war. We don't want brothers killing brothers with foreign weapons, with foreign ideologies. And Thầy was among those who tried to do so. And we were suppressed by both sides. And it's very difficult, it's very dangerous to take up that stand. Because if you take side, and at least you are protected by one side. But if you don't take side, you are exposed to the destruction by both sides. It's very difficult. And in the Vietnam War, we struggle for peace. We lead actions to help refugees, victims of war. We did so in the spirit of the Buddha: non-violence, non-discrimination. But it's very difficult to communicate with the world outside so that we can get enough support for the way of reconciliation. And if there were monks and nuns who pour gasoline on their body and burn themselves alive, that is an attempt to draw the attention of the press so that they will know that our intention is not to continue with the war. Our intention is to stop the war. So if the war still goes on in many places in the world nowadays, that is because of the same reason. We are caught by one view. We think that only our view is the right view. We are dogmatic. We become intolerant. We are attached to our views. Those of us who practice according to the community of interbeing, we know that the first precept is about non-attachment to views. That is very important in Buddhism. The first precept, the first mindfulness training is not to kill. The first mindfulness training is about one openness, and the second one is non-attachment to views. And they both speak of the necessity to be open, to get rid of views, to be free from views, from doctrines, from ideologies. Because we were in the spot. It's very hard. And you learn the truth that we suffer because of intolerance, dogmatism, and attachment to views. Aware of the suffering created by fanaticism and intolerance, we are determined not to be idolatrous about or bound to any doctrine, theory, or ideology, even Buddhist ones. Very radical. That is the lion's roar. Aware of the suffering created by attachment to views and wrong perceptions, we are determined to avoid being narrow-minded and bound to present views. We shall learn and practice non-attachment from views in order to be open to others' insight and experiences. So not to kill is not the basic precept of Buddhism. When you are free from views, dogmatism, from intolerance, suddenly you stop killing. You don't need to tell that you should not kill. Those of us who practice in the order of infinite being, we know that the first precepts are the precepts of the mind. The precepts of the mind. Tâm giới, we know that there are 3 series of precepts, mindfulness trainings. These precepts concerning the mouth, these precepts concerning the body. And not to kill belong to the precept concerning the body. But the body is not the root, the mind is the root. That is why in the order of interbeing, we begin by the precept of the heart, of the mind. Because these are 3 aspects of action, karma. It has to do with right thinking, it has to do with right speech, and it has to do with right action. Usually, the precept on the body come first. Not to kill, not to steal, not to commit adultery, and so on. It is related to body. But in the real Buddhist teaching, the mind is the foundation. And that is why it could be better to begin with the precepts of the mind. Many of us in the order of interbeing have not had a chance to learn about how the 14 precepts have come into existence. And in this retreat, we have a chance to find out. In the Dhammapada, it is said that mind precedes all knowable. I hope you recognize the word knowable. That is a technical term in Buddhism. That is the English translation of the word Dharma. We know that Dharma with the capital D is the teaching of the Buddha, and the Dharma with a regular D is the object of our mind, object of our consciousness. So knowable means object of mind. It means things, phenomena. Mind is the root, is the first of all phenomena. But when using the word phenomena, it is to think that phenomena is something existing separately, independently from mind. So knowable is the official translation of Dharma. There is mind, but mind cannot be mind by itself. When mind manifests, it should be subject and object. Like in a perception. When you perceive, it means you perceive something. perceiving is always perceiving something. And you have heard, consciousness is always consciousness of something. In the discipline of phenomenology, we learn that also. Consciousness is always consciousness of something. It cannot be consciousness alone. So subject and object must manifest together, like left and right. They manifest together. So knowable, it means the object of mind. Mind is a knower, and the Dhamma is the object of mind, knowable. Mind is the chief. Mind made are they. The knowable is made of mind. If with a corrupted mind, one should either speak or act, dukkha follows. Dukkha, ill-being, follows. It's not Thai translation. Thai English is much more simple. This is translation of Khanti Palo Thera in Sydney. So with a corrupted mind, a mind with wrong perceptions, if we speak or act, and then suffering will follow. It's like the carriage will follow, the wheel will follow the ox. If with a clear and confident mind, one should speak or act, happiness follows, goes by that, as one shadow never departing. If with a clear and confident mind, one should speak or act, happiness follows, goes by that, and as one shadow never departing. So that is the teaching of Buddha. Mind is the king. Mind is the foundation. And that is why it's good to present the precepts of the mind first, and to present the precepts on the speech and the body later. And the 14 mindfulness trainings are classified, are represented like that. We begin with precepts of the mind.